All right, so there we go. So, Mr. Bromfield, what's going on, man?
Not too much. How you doing?
Not bad, not bad. It's Friday, and actually, I have some cousin of mine coming over later, and she's gonna bring some oxtail. So actually, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Oh, you know what happened to me yesterday? I was coming back from my mom's yesterday evening, and I stopped
Yeah,
off at my favorite restaurant.
where's
And as
that?
soon as I got in, because they know me, they're like, "We only have curry goat and fried chicken." Oxtail done. So it was funny because I had this idea back in the day. I was like, man, I wish I could create a system for these the Caribbean restaurants so
Oh
they
my
could tell
God.
you real time what they have in the back.
Oh my
So as I'm
God.
driving, I know there's no oxtail.
That is so true about Caribbean restaurants. I always used to go in and I was tell my wife, okay, let's go in and ask and say, what don't you have? All right? Right? What don't you have? That'll make it easier. And then they look at you vex,
Right.
like you shouldn't be asked. Okay, you serve oxtail or you serve what? You know, and you shouldn't be asking. And okay, do you have oxtail? Don't have it. You know,
Right.
you have goat? Don't have it. What do you got?
Right.
It'll make it a lot easier. But anyways, that's a good segue because what I wanted to, talk to you about, and I tapped you on this because obviously we know each other well.
Mhm.
We're in the same business, and I wanted to get have a conversation going about, entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
So, and particularly the phenomenon of, nonprofits, and it's in Black community. That's the only phenomenon with nonprofits essentially taking the lead in regards to entrepreneurship.
Right.
And I think look, a lot of your LinkedIn posts have a lot of insight. It's very, and I think one of the things I love about you, you're very courageous. You're not, truth. You're not afraid of the truth, right? And I
Right.
think more people who can just speak honestly doesn't mean you're right, and doesn't mean I'm the same type, and doesn't mean I'm right. And you and I don't necessarily always agree. But the good thing about it is that we're honest with each other, and at the end of the day, that's the most important characteristic. But before we do that, if I can just get a little background on you, how you got to become CEO, how you became an entrepreneur, in terms of running your own business. So maybe just give us a quick little background on that, and before we go into some of the more specific questions that I have.
Sure. So I grew up in a household where my mom was entrepreneurial and my dad was entrepreneurial. So my dad has always run businesses in the automotive sector.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and my mom, she was part of a company that specialized in, I want to say plumbing, but it's more than that. So basically their company did the waterfall, or sorry, the what do you call it? It's not the waterfalls, but in front of the
In the
oh,
kitchen, you
what's
mean?
it called? No, so in front of the Paramount, Canada's Wonderland
Oh, okay.
mountain,
Yeah.
there's the what were they called? Water
Okay.
fountain. That big
Water
water
fountain.
water fountain, right.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Okay.
right, so
Yeah.
the company she was part of, they had that contract. They relined the sewers in Crystal Beach and whatnot, and then
Okay.
she moved on and she went into different businesses, small businesses, but she was always at the top. They're really profitable businesses, very niche.
Yeah.
One of them was a specialty aquarium store, and when you looked at how much people were spending on aquariums, like this is the saltwater aquariums with,
Mhm.
exotic fish and whatnot, right? So
Mhm.
so I just grew up in an environment where both my parents were doing their own thing. And funny enough, when I, went through my route of education and going to Ryerson and leaving Ryerson and working at a startup, and then I left that startup after it was eventually acquired by Google, and I
Mhm.
went over to PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I was,
Yep.
stationed mostly in the United States. I worked in the United States
Okay.
for most of that time. So when it was time for me to say, "Hey, mom and dad, I'm going to venture off on my own," that was the last thing they wanted me to do.
Mhm.
So, so right, so I obviously I did it anyways, but
Mhm.
what I learned was that this is hard. It's not easy. And so
Yeah,
I was shielded from it, right? I never knew the struggles that my mom or my dad would be going through. They knew them.
yeah.
And when you talk to entrepreneurs, you realize that they usually shield a lot, not only from their kids, but also from their spouse,
Tell me
unless the
about
spouse is in the building,
it.
right?
Guilty.
Exactly, right? So that's so yeah, that's definitely my path and
Yeah,
some of the insights I've gained along the way.
yeah,
But again, I was fortunate enough to be able to see the operations of a business from a very, 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 very young age. So yeah,
yeah.
I grew up in
Well,
it.
well, those are all really, great insights. So, just quickly, what does your company do?
So
Just
my
yeah.
company, when I started it, I saw this gap in terms
Hmm.
of leaving PricewaterhouseCoopers, working at a startup before, so I had the technical development skills. I understand risk management from working at the consulting firm, and basically got to understand what executives are looking for and what
Yes.
really makes a company and strategy work. And so I launched Formative Innovations by saying, hey, I know the tech but I also know what businesses want. So
Yeah.
basically, let's pitch it that technology is just merely a tool to execute
Mm.
strategy.
Yep.
All right. And
Yeah.
and so my brother, my younger brother, who's also part of the business, we there's a pretty big age gap between us. So I was working and whatnot. So when he was in high school, I started to buy him stuff computer wise for him
Yeah.
to get into graphic design and creative design. And so basically I put him on a track where he was going to head up the creative division of the company, and
Yeah.
that's what he does.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good. And by the way, I just stole one of your lines. Douglas Blackwell, as you know, it's a strategy firm. Also, obviously focus on technology. So you said technology is just a tool to execute strategy. So don't be surprised if you see that somewhere
All good. Yeah,
in one of our
no problem.
presentations that we so often do together. Um,
Hey, you know what, Perry? And again, you mentioned it. We don't always agree, but we learn from each other.
yes, yes,
We keep the emotions out of our
yes,
discussions.
yes,
Just stick to what our insights are, and that's
yes.
how we learn and grow. And if we did that more as a community, we'd be in a different spot.
Well, you know what? That's another good segue. So what I want to go into is I feel that since George Floyd, and then you talk about emotion, a lot of well-intentioned, people have put themselves as leaders within the community. And what we've seen is after George Floyd, we saw the injustice of society. We saw the lack of political power that Black people around the world, not only in America, has. And
Mhm.
people realized that you needed money, you needed wealth, you needed equity, you needed businesses, entrepreneurship, in order for the economics to wield that political power,
Mhm.
which has always been, for centuries or forever, essentially. That's how the world works. The
Right.
flow goes from economics to political. So, what has happened is that they realized that there's a need for entrepreneurship. But the way that they've gone about it, which sort of just baffles my mind, is that they've created nonprofits, organizations with people who have no business experience, no entrepreneurship experience, essentially advising on how, to create entrepreneurship and create wealth.
Right.
And just shortly, and I'll wrap it up. But this is fundamentally wrong. And I'm a data science guy, and the evidence is exactly opposite, okay, to how wealth is created. So what are your thoughts on this phenomenon?
Yeah, so it's loaded. We kind of touched on it in our talks leading up to this and whatnot. But at the end of the day, Again, this is a tough journey, right?
Yes, yes,
And it's very primal. It's not emotional, it's primal. It's
100%.
hunter-gatherer,
Yep,
right?
100%,
That's what this is.
100%.
So to your point, you have to understand, um, as someone who's going to advise business owners, just like we said, we hide some of the aspects of our business, especially when it gets bad, when it gets rough,
Yeah,
from our children and from our spouses, right? But you have to understand what that feels like in order to advise other business owners, right?
exactly, exactly.
So me and my the greatest the greatest thing I hear from my business mentors, those who are seasoned, very, very successful, is like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna feel that," or "I felt it," and then they'll tell you a story, and you're like, "Really? You went through that?" You know what I mean? Because it's
Yep,
common, right? To
yes.
the point where in the United States, it's not as easy here, but in the United States, like you're not an entrepreneur unless a couple of bankruptcies have happened,
Yeah.
right?
So true.
So failure is a big part. You know, if you talk to most entrepreneurs, they'll tell you like until you know what it's like to wonder how you're going to make payroll. You've got staff
100%.
and
100%.
tomorrow's the 15th of the month
Yep.
and it's not in the business account. So now
Yep.
you got to go to your spouse and say, "Hey, I need to take some money off the house to cover. Don't worry, I'm going to put it back." Um
Absolutely.
right? But I have to get past tomorrow, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and you know, here's what's coming in, it just didn't arrive yet or whatever the case may be. And if it's not payroll, then it's, you know, every business
Something
has
else.
fixed cost, right?
Yep.
And they have
Yep.
capital costs, they have
Yeah.
servicing costs.
Yes.
So you know, when you look at that, and you go through that, then you understand why it's different to be an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
right? If I was the
Yeah.
CEO of a large company, those critical moments, it doesn't come out of my bank account to try to, or my personal funds to try to prop up the company. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? And
Yep.
so that's going to be the main difference. And it happens at all level of businesses, whether you're running a clothing store, a
Yeah.
restaurant, or a professional services business like ours.
Yeah.
There's just costs, and not revenue doesn't always line up with the
Yeah.
costs that are going out, especially in the beginning.
Yeah. No, no. And these are the things. So what happens, we know, right, in all civilizations, right? And for me, history history is not the study of history. History is, to me, is like calculus. How you measure the rate of change and how you measure change, and what you can learn from that to see how things happen, so you can take that forward in your time and place, to give you better advice and experience. So what has happened here? Let's focus specifically on Canada. Let's get some examples. So one of the things I find, pretty incredible is that, as you know, in the entrepreneurial space, particularly in the technology space, how businesses start up or how things are founded, it's founded with equity,
Yep.
right? Equity is the source of growth, and in the development phase, you need equity, you need a lot of it, and you need it continuously. This is, if you look at some of these tech companies have come about, this is how it's being created. So in the middle of COVID, the government of Canada essentially came out with a Black Entrepreneurship program. Essentially, long story, you know
Hmm.
the story,
Hmm.
but for the benefit of our listeners here, essentially the government came out in COVID and said, hey, because of the repression of Black people in the past and disadvantages, we're going to give you a bucket of money to become entrepreneurial, right? However, that money would be in the form of loans. Okay, not that necessarily there's anything wrong with it, but one of the things people don't understand is even a fundamental difference between debt and equity. Now, a company that's mature and doing well and has revenues, they can take on debt because they can service that debt, and it's better for them to do that because they don't have to give away any equity, right? So for a more mature company, debt is good. So loans are better. But for most of the companies in the Black community, and when they start talking about entrepreneurship, Now, if you talk about entrepreneurship, starting up companies and building companies and whatnot, equity is the way to go. So we look at the mainstream, building, particularly in the area of technology, with equity, but we're jumping up and down to be saddled with loans in the development and growth phase. Okay.
Absolutely.
Basic fundamentals of business are not understood. And then what ends up happening, if that business fails, who has equity, then investors lose their money, and everybody understands that it's equity. But in the startup phase, if you're saddled with debt, then you can be screwed for life in terms of your credit rating, in terms of what you owe, and you may never have an opportunities. While in the mainstream, guys fail and they start again. Guys fail, they start again, and the third time round, they hit the jackpot.
Right.
So, what are your thoughts on just basically dependency on government, right, to create wealth for you, and just the lack of not understanding even basic difference between growth, and the use of debt accordingly in terms of the overall business?
Yeah, and I mean, so basically with businesses, cash flow is king, right? That
Yes.
reigns supreme, right? So even when we talk about VC loans, whatever it is, or even equity, your goal should be always to try to get revenue, right?
Yes.
Because if
Yes.
you generate revenue, then you have the power to say even to equity investors, you can invest this much and get this much, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm generating the revenue. I'm proving to you that
Yes.
I can do this without you. You're going to accelerate, but I'm giving you the opportunity to come in and
Exactly.
join this ride, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things, just backing up to the Black Entrepreneurship Fund, my first criticism of it,
Mhm.
when I heard that it was loans, I said, well, they don't know business, because
Exactly.
no business wants a loan unless you're buying a piece of capital equipment
Yes.
that
Yes.
is going to generate more revenue than that loan payment is, right?
Absolutely.
But it's
Yeah.
not just to get a loan to then try to figure it out. No way, right? So what you want in business is an operating line of credit, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's going to have a lower interest rate typically,
Yeah.
if it's secured,
Yeah.
than even a loan. And what
Yeah.
that operating line of credit lets you do is, instead of having to go to your house line of credit when things get tight because accounts receivable,
Yeah.
you haven't been paid for a couple things and you still got to make payroll, you still got to pay your office lease and whatnot. You go
Mhm.
to that operating line of credit, and when the cash flow comes in, you pay it down, and it just
Mhm.
revolves like that. And the key
Mhm.
thing with the operating line of credit is that you only have to pay the interest that is owing.
Yeah.
There is no
Yeah.
fixed loan payment.
Yeah.
So that's how you manage cash flow
Mhm.
when operating a business. So when I heard all these people talking about loans like it's a win, I was just like, they don't know business, right? Because nobody wants a loan unless it's a fixed capital loan because they bought a piece of equipment that is generating revenue.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Um, so yeah, so I'll leave it there and let you continue. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just these fundamental basics. And oh, I'll just say the other thing about the
Yeah.
Black Entrepreneurship Fund. As a community, we have to connect dots and look at things on a macro level, right? So
Yep.
this comes easy to me because I'm a software developer. For the
Yep.
last almost 30 years, I've been writing logic every single day. That's it. Decision trees every single day.
Yeah.
So when things happen, I immediately can connect dots and just figure things out.
Yeah.
So when the Black Entrepreneurship Fund was launched out of nowhere,
Mhm.
I realized that it was 2 weeks away before Parliament was set to resume. It was prorogued
Yep.
because of the We
That's right.
scandal. They prorogued the government, and then it was supposed to resume 2 weeks, and this program came out of nowhere. And I said, okay, so he's shoring up that the Liberals are shoring up that if there's an election called when Parliament resumes,
Yep.
non-confidence vote, then he's got a segment of his voter block locked, right?
Yes.
Because he announced
Yes.
this. And I said to people at the time, I said, okay, so the applications are due November, whatever. It was really quick too, when these applications were due, the deadline. And I
Mhm.
said, you will not hear about this program again until the next election is called.
Yep.
And people thought I was nuts. And
Yeah.
then the last Friday of August, I guess it was 2021,
Mhm.
out of nowhere, here's the awardees of the Black Entrepreneurship Fund,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And then in October, then on the Monday, so that was the
Mhm.
Friday, on the Monday they announced that the election is going to happen in October.
Yeah, yeah.
So
No,
come on, right?
they don't
So
understand
so
this politics.
so you have to understand the game that we're in, and
Mhm.
and how we get played, right?
Yeah, how we get there.
Um,
It's true.
how
It's
we
true.
get played,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
So yeah, so that was obvious. Anybody can go back and check the timelines I just said, and you will see how it lines up perfectly with what I just said.
yeah.
And so again, it was to make sure that top of mind in the voters' mind, or a certain segment of voters.
Mhm.
But the program itself, I was like, it's gonna fail.
Yeah.
If it's not gonna fail, it's not gonna offer this win that everybody thinks it's gonna
Can't.
offer.
It can't. It can't. It
Right,
can't.
right. And
Yeah.
to that point, even, I heard that in the beginning too, you would go and you would be directed to, the Black Entrepreneurship Fund page for CIBC, or any of the other banks. I'm not picking on any one bank.
Yeah.
And when you go through that preliminary instructions, or process, you would then be flipped over to the regular loan application.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So and again we have to think and say, hey, would the banks, how would they explain to the board of directors that we're going to adjudicate risky loans just because of this initiative, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if they're backed by the government, which was
Yeah.
what the government was promising, right? At the end
Yeah.
of the day, they're
Mhm.
not in the VC business.
Correct. Banks are not in the VC business. Banks are conservatives, conservative, and banks, have the shareholder in mind. That's essentially what it is. So a
Mm,
couple of things. One of the things I've found, looking through the pages of all the things that has happened in relation to the Black Entrepreneurship Fund, you find money being given to basketball organizations,
mm,
right? You find money given to you, like the organizations were given money that have the majority of it, okay, was given money to organizations, and those organizations were supposed to do what with it? So this whole thing about entrepreneurship in reality hasn't, hasn't happened. And I find it, quite amazing that people don't understand at the end of the day, okay, you can't achieve power unless you have equity. And I
mm,
find what happens a lot in our communities, everybody's running around, I call it the announcement culture.
mm,
Everybody's Black folks are around announcing this. Oh, what a great day at this. We've done this, but they have not achieved nothing. And one of the big things is that everybody's running around announcing new corporate positions. Oh, this Black person got onto the board, or this Black person has, is the new vice president of X, Y, and Z. Okay, you're an employee. Okay, that doesn't create equity. So at the end of the day, what creates equity, okay, is actually investing money. And one of the problems that we have in our community is that we love to make announcements, we love to get involved in organizations, but what we do is that we don't invest in
yeah,
each other, right?
yep,
So, for example, the Jewish community, the Indian community has come over here, a
yep,
lot of other immigrant groups. A guy has an idea, they go to their friends, family, whatnot, they put money down and they take a risk. In the Black community, I've had so many things where guys, oh, you love the idea, I love the idea. Okay, let's make an investment here. Crickets. And what they do is they run to they talk a lot and they say, oh, we need Black wealth, we need do that, but then they run to the organizations and government. Oh, you invest, right? So the problem is we lie to ourselves when we think we can actually create wealth by not actually taking risk and making an investment and rely on government to do it. And one thing I'm going to tell you, by the next election, everything has changed, right?
oh,
This, all this, if the conservatives wins, all these programs are gone anyways, right? And even if they don't win, a liberal stay in power, as you can see, Friedman and they've all these programs, they're gone. So it
Right.
is not sustainable, right? Now I'll wrap it up. Sorry, I've gone too long. It is not sustainable to rely on government and organizations to create profit. First of all, it doesn't work. The only thing that's sustainable is actual investment in equity, beginning within your own community and with your own self, and then moving into the venture capital space. So what are
Right.
your thoughts? This is just
Man,
totally upside down, man. It's upside
this
down.
right, and this is so loaded. There's so many things that I can touch on here.
Well, go ahead, touch.
Um, Yeah, okay, I'm gonna start with the first thing that you mentioned. Well, not the first thing, but one of the things you mentioned is
Yeah,
that, it could all change if another political party comes in.
yeah,
I would argue that we can't be afraid of other political parties coming in, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
number one.
yeah.
I do a lot of work in the United States, and nothing changed when Donald Trump was president.
That's
It,
true.
it didn't
That's true.
affect it didn't affect me whatsoever,
That's
right?
true.
So I heard all these people, I'm not going to the United States, and I'm just like, okay, but it really doesn't affect you.
Yeah,
And when we come back to even just dialing it back to here,
yeah.
so the one big thing I heard was the Ontario Black Youth Action Plan program was going to get scrapped because Doug Ford came in. Doug Ford doubled it, and I'm not a
Oh,
conservative, right? So I'm
I
not,
hear
I'm
you.
not av
I hear you.
right. So I'm not advocating for
Just
any.
the
I'm not,
facts.
I'm not aligned to any political group. I
Yeah.
vote on the issues at the time,
Yes.
right? So that didn't happen. Everybody thought it was going to get clawed back. It got doubled, right? But besides that, we cannot be in a position where we are constantly advocating for one political party because we're scared of the others are going to do,
Yes.
because
Exactly.
because then we're just politically controlled, right? And one thing
Exactly.
that the other groups do is that if they are going to enter an election,
Yeah.
all candidates from all parties look like them. So no matter which one wins, they all win,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So this monopoly that a certain party has on us is
Yeah.
not beneficial. That's
Yeah.
number one.
Yeah.
Number two, you mentioned George Floyd. So here's the thing. I think that George Floyd provided cover for a lot of people. It allowed
Hmm.
promoting Black professionals, procuring services from Black firms. It allowed them to be delegated to people who don't look like us, right?
Exactly.
And so why am I saying that? Well, when people ask me what's the biggest difference between being a Black entrepreneur and from what you see with your peers. So I have business colleagues from all different backgrounds. Here's the difference. As a Black entrepreneur, 90% of my revenue, my core revenue, has to come from companies and people that don't look like me,
Absolutely.
right? And the 10% that does, that's a bonus and great. For
Yeah.
them, their core revenue base comes from people that look like them, right? So now it's a lot easier to run a business in that environment because you got the support. And so people are going to say, well, we don't have that many businesses, so how can we do it, or whatever the case may be. But here's the thing: when I say George Floyd gave cover, right? So I hear a lot of professionals in different organizations tell me that, once this person becomes manager, the entire floor changes composition and the staff now looks like that manager.
Yeah.
And so I asked them, are you a manager? Yes. How many have you hired that look like you? Crickets,
Exactly.
right? They're doing
Exactly.
what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Again, this is primal. You you
Yes.
you you know what I mean? So it's not to say that you discriminate or whatnot, but it's human nature. This isn't racism. This is human nature to
Exactly.
go and so if someone says, "Hey Andrew, I need you to hire a VP of this." Well, some of the VP candidates that I know look like me. They're in my circle, so I'm going to put them forward,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
I think that we're actually afraid to do that.
Yes.
Um, and so I even say that the people who put us in these positions where we can hire probably sit back and like they don't even hire their people that look like them. This is crazy. Like,
Because they're
why don't they
afraid.
do it?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So it's and again, when it comes to real economic empowerment of a community, the the people that look like us that are in high positions, that's great for the brand, but not for economic empowerment.
Exactly.
Economic empowerment only comes through having a vibrant business community. That's it.
Absolutely.
And when you have a vibrant business community, guess what? You don't need government to fund your non-for-profits. Those businesses will.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And I want to just stick on that for a second, because the difference between these people get these corporate positions. Again, they're just salaried employees, right? And the reason why they can't hire other, black people is that essentially they're afraid. They're just there now to protect their own jobs. And I got no problem with that. They got people, they have mortgages to pay. But the only true source of wealth is through equity. And the only way you get equity, okay, is through entrepreneurship. And people say, oh, there was somebody the other day that made a big deal. This black woman got on the board of a major bank. And people are, but she has no equity. Okay, she's a board member, but there's
Hmm.
no power. She can't change the world. The only way to do that is through entrepreneurship, and that's how it's always been. So one of the things that puzzles me is we don't base our decisions based on facts and evidence and historical evidence. We base it on emotions and how we feel. And
Right.
emotions are not going to get anywhere. And just for example, with you and I, so so Douglas Blackwell, we're building software, we're looking to raise capital. But if you look at our team, it's all black. Starting with you, from a developer, a software engineer. We have another guy who's just brilliant with large language models and
Hmm.
AI. We have another person who's a PhD in intellectual property and technology. I mean, we have a team, right?
Hmm.
And what I say is that team, we raise the capital, we get investors, and we become a big technology company. We're looking to build this business to a $1.5 billion valuation. That's our 5-year goal. That is the only way that we can now create power and equity. And for me, if I'm on top of that organization and I'm a billionaire, then I can just write checks to every community. I can just write checks to community
That's it.
organizations. I just write checks. Okay, I'm not
That's
running
it.
around begging the government. Or what we need a community organization to give free tutoring in the math and science to young black students so they can get into the top university. Here's $2 million. Here's $5 million. Here's $10 million. That's how it's done. It's not done by groveling at the bottom and begging to the banks or whatnot. But the problem is, I find we don't want to do the work, right? We don't
Well,
want to
well,
do the work.
right. So that, yeah, like you said, there's the investment standpoint. If you're a B2B business, like we both have B2B businesses,
Yep,
again, it's that ability. One of my first business mentors say, only spend time with those who can write checks.
exactly.
Every You can be
Yeah,
friends with the others after hours, but during business hours, you are only looking for those who can actually write checks and will
yeah,
do it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because that's how you are going to generate revenue. There's no other
yes,
way.
yeah,
So again, I dial it back to, let's not act like we have nobody in a position of power in the Canadian corporate sector, right?
yep, yep.
They're there, and again, so it's either that they're scared or they don't have the discretionary power to write checks. It's one
That's
of the
true.
two,
That's true.
right? Because
That's true.
because they
That's
are
true.
coming, because my peers from other communities, they get that business, right?
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
factual, and they ask me. And coming back to another thing you said, just as I say that, the infrastructure, like I don't think we understand as a community how far we are behind the others. That's why I cringe when I see the first this and the first that on LinkedIn, because
Yeah.
it's
I
just a
hate that.
reminder to everyone
I
else how
hate
far
that.
behind we are. So
Yeah.
years ago, I remember I was talking to someone from a different community. I'll just say it, the Sri Lankan community, and we
Yeah.
were talking about how operating a business is not as easy as you first thought it was. In Canada, it's pretty tight with only four banks, major
Mhm,
banks, etc. And he
mhm.
said, so that's why as we have our Sri Lankan credit union, because that's
Yeah.
how we don't rely on them. We get our
Yeah.
money through our credit union.
Yeah.
And he says, well, you guys have been here longer than us, so surely you have a credit union or a bank, right? And I just had to hang my head in shame and like, no, 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 we don't, right?
No,
Uh,
no,
so,
no,
so
we don't. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So we don't. So we are very far behind. I'm in tech. We both know the AI landscape. We know, the change. Like this is like this is like rattle the fence time in Terminator 2 Judgment Day when
It's true.
you're trying to alert everybody that, hey, this nuke or catastrophic event is coming. This is where we are today, right? So again, when we look at what the community needs to do to build economic wealth or empowerment, we are very we are running out of time. So again, it's being
100%.
able to, if you're
Yeah.
in those positions of power, being able
Yeah.
to invest in companies, write checks to companies, raise funds for companies that are from their community. That's
Yeah.
the only way it's going to happen. And again, we cannot be in a position. Malcolm X said, if you're running around begging everyone else for a job, you're in a bad spot.
Yeah, and the president of Ghana said that the other day at a speech he made in Washington. Enough with the begging, right? And first of all, nobody will invest in people who beg because they don't have
No,
the DNA, they don't have the intestinal fortitude to succeed. One of the things I want to touch on what you said is so important. We don't, in the age of AI, you and I are in AI, we see what's happening, right? We see who's controlling the universe, right? The tech, I call it the
right,
tech aristocracy is sort of controlling the universe and making the decisions for us. So the fact is, we are so dangerously behind. If we think, okay, somehow we're fighting racism, this woke culture of fighting racism is going to get us to equity and economic wealth, it is setting us back because at the end of the day, with AI, right now, it's the engineers, it's the guys who are writing the code, the guys who are building the systems. And if we're not in that, if we're not a part of that, we're going to be wiped out. So there's 100% probability, if we are not in tech, that Black people essentially will be wiped out. Because if AI is controlling a lot of our universe and making these particular decisions, and we don't have equity, we are not participators of that. We have no opportunity to participate in the future. So we will become increasingly marginalized, and not by racism, by the fact that we don't participate in any economic wealth cycles that take place, and we have no power. So we can't hire,
right,
our kids. Like Andrew, let's say, my daughter's in university, and she's over and she's taking this particular program and she's graduating. I'll pick and she can probably work for a company like yours. I can pick up the phone and say, hey Andrew, take a look at my daughter, and they get hired. When I was in the corporate world, I saw this all the time. I saw this in the investment field, right? I saw this all the
everybody's
time. So wealth creates
right.
more opportunity. But if we're not in the game, right? We're not in the game, how can we play to win? And one last thing, and not to dismerge or anybody's business, but one of the things which I can't stand, even in our community, we're focused on Black Restaurant Week, and like this is the disconnect in regards to logic and understanding how the universe works. In the history of the universe, in the history of the last 1,000 years, what has created wealth is technology. What I mean by that, if you're associated with technology in the Industrial Revolution, in the Agricultural Revolution, from the printing press on, electronics, any form of technology is what grows and what creates economic wealth. And if we are focused more on Restaurant Week versus being involved in technology, we literally, as a species, can be wiped out. And people don't understand those scientific facts, right? Because there's no guarantee, right?
Right. So here's a couple points on that. So the example I always give in terms of what we're talking about with AI and whatnot. So anybody can say right now AI is not as intelligent and blah 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 blah. It's
Yeah.
not as advanced as we think. It doesn't match human capabilities, not even close. The point is, I see it
Mhm.
eliminating jobs. Okay.
Yes.
And I see the potential for it doing it every time they release a new update, there's going to be more jobs cut. Okay.
Yep.
So again, coming back to human nature, not racism, human nature.
Human
If
nature.
I own
Yes.
if I own a firm and I have 500 people and it's a diverse firm of 500 people, and then this tool comes out that completely revolutionizes how I can do my business, and now I only need 100 employees, not 500. Who do you think, or how diverse do you think that company is going to be when I have to go from
Exactly.
500 to 100? And,
Exactly.
and and a lot of my family members are working in that company,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
so that's what we're facing, and that's the only clearest way that I can put it.
Yeah.
So then the other thing, you talk about the technology and whatnot.
Yep.
So coming back to these organizations that sprung up, with George Floyd and the Black Entrepreneurship Fund, they had all these grants, and so me and my friends, a couple of us in tech, um, who have very innovative offerings, very prestigious clients,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
We said let's apply to this grant, right? And let's see if we get it, knowing
Yeah.
we all put money down, we ain't getting it.
Yeah.
So the first thing I get back was, you made it past the first round. Unfortunately, you didn't get selected in the second round. And I said, so they said, if you want the rubric of how this was done, let us know. So I asked for it. And then it didn't arrive. So I had to respond back and said, what's the ETA on getting this ring?
Yeah.
So then
Yeah.
it came back and there was no rubric. It was just like, very innovative idea in business, no more funds available. Right? And my
Man.
parents didn't even bother follow up. They're just like, what a joke, right?
Yeah.
Because we know that there's not a lot of black tech companies. We know
Yeah.
them all, right?
Yeah. We
And
know
we
them
know
all.
none of them got it. And we applied specifically to test this, right?
Yeah.
To see if, as a community, with money that is not earned but given, will we
Yes.
invest in technology? No. The
Yes.
answer is no, we will not,
No.
right?
No. 100%.
and
100%.
and it's suicide.
Yeah.
So if I can just rattle off a couple other things.
Sure.
So when it comes back to, again, these organizations
Mhm.
that sprung up as a George Floyd and Black Entrepreneurship Fund, we had people who are, successful professionals working in industry, financial services industry. I'm not
Yep.
taking anything away from them,
Yep.
but they would say things like, we have such great entrepreneurs, they just need financial literacy. Okay,
Oh
good
my
luck
God.
getting VC or a
Yeah.
loan when you're broadcasting and branding the black community as not
Yeah.
having financial literacy. Which
Yeah.
VC is going to invest in
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
when you're telling them we don't know basic financial literacy?
Yeah, yeah, I'm going to let you continue, but I want you to stick on that because that's the point of what we're talking about, how it hurts Black entrepreneurs like us. So continue on that road, and I'm going to ask you
Yes.
for an example that you gave me when you went into a boardroom to compete for business and the response you get. But explain to us how people who are not entrepreneurs define in the Black community and how the Black entrepreneurs like us. And don't be telling me if I don't have financial literacy. Do you know my like? It's so it
It
is
was
so
ridiculous.
offensive, right?
Right.
But it's the ignorance. So just continue along that
And it's
line, how it
what they
hurts us.
do. Right. So
Yeah.
these are the same people who run junior achievement for the banks with high school students. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And they're
Yeah.
putting entrepreneurs in the same boat. Dudes like me and you who have a lot of professional experience before even starting our own firms,
Yeah.
right? So that's
Yeah.
the first thing. Number two, I said entrepreneurship is grueling. It will test you like nothing else, right? It will really, really test you. It's a
Yeah.
roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
So I'm not diminishing the fact that mental health is a real issue. It's
Yeah.
something to be taken very seriously.
Yeah.
But again, if you run campaigns saying mental health for black entrepreneurs, and black entrepreneurs suffer mental health at a
Oh
higher
my
rate than any
God.
other,
You're
good
dead.
luck getting VC, good luck getting loans, because you're basically saying you are high risk. We are high risk entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
High risk. We don't have any financial literacy, and we're prone to mental health. So we're probably going to lose your money.
Like they position us as victims, right?
That's
It is
it.
it is pathetic. It is really sad because nobody is gonna go out there and invest in you. And I was speaking to one of my clients who's a entrepreneur, um, older gentleman, Jewish gentleman. I only use the word Jewish gentleman because the point I'm going to make, because he said, Perry, what's going on there? Like he read the article and it was actually from I'll say the name was from the Black North thing. He's like, what is wrong with your folks? He said, what is wrong with your tribe? He goes, you guys are out there saying you need this, you need this, you need this, right? So they're like, you guys are this victimhood thing. Entrepreneurship is not going to work. He know I deal with him, so he knows you got to be resilient. You got to be tough. You got to be able to take it. You got to be able to stare nothing in the face when you go to bed at night, and then figure out how to make it happen in the morning, right? Those are the tenets of entrepreneurship. Okay, you go in and start talking about, oh, black men. So you're saying black people are fragile,
That's
right?
it.
They're
That's it.
fragile. Nobody's going to invest in somebody who is fragile. So these guys
And
need to stop talking because they're hurting serious folks like you and I.
right. And so, and again, so when we dial that back based on your conversations with whether it be a client or someone from your professional past, the same thing with me. So a couple of things. My clients know that I don't bring up names. I don't talk. I don't take selfies. I took one with David Stern just because I wanted to
Yeah,
reenact the draft day
yeah,
picture
yeah, yeah.
because I didn't go far in basketball. So not like you, Perry. Not like I hear you're a baller.
Used to
You would have
be,
schooled
used to
me.
be. Back in the day,
So
yep.
right, right. So,
Yeah,
but what people don't understand is that, and if you are in that circle of business and you are respected and you have the energy and you don't talk and they know that they can trust that what they say to you will stay in that room, you
yeah,
have very, very candid conversations. So I
yeah,
heard the same thing. I heard what the brand being pushed out on our community was during that period from other business leaders,
yeah,
right? And here's the thing, to your point about it hurting, they were like, why would I procure business or why would I procure services from this business that's getting all my tax money through these grants and whatnot?
it's
You
true.
got your
It's
money,
true. It's
right?
true.
And
Yeah,
getting money through grants,
yeah.
spending weeks trying to apply for a grant versus being out there pounding the pavement, generating revenue, it
Hmm.
doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
And not only that, but that money will run out. A grant will run out.
Yep,
A loan
yep,
will run out. The only
yep.
thing that is perpetual is revenue. And so
Correct.
we have to make sure that we have a brand as a community that says we will give this business owner revenue. But right
Yes,
now, we're too risky because of
yes.
all the messages that have been put out and amplified during or after George Floyd and this Black
Yeah,
Entrepreneurship Fund. And so
yep.
when I talk about nonprofits, charity, victimhood, whatnot, it's targeted towards those who got into the entrepreneur game, those
Yeah,
that are
exactly. Yeah,
doing a
yeah,
social agenda, especially with
yes.
youth. I have a
That's what
big
we're
heart
talking
for
about.
youth.
100%.
100%. I
Yep.
support a number of them through participation, whatnot. That's not my issue. My issue is
Neither me.
perpetuating victimhood, especially when it comes to business. And I will say, from the youth standpoint, again, George Floyd amplified this thing that we are victims, we are victims, we are victims. Me mentoring youth and talking to youth, I'm getting this sense. And then I asked them straight, like, what's your sentiment right now?
Mhm.
Sentiment is, what's the point? If I'm going to hit a glass
Yes.
ceiling, if I'm going to go into a
Yes.
corporate, I'm not going to get promoted. I'm not going to be
Yes.
recognized for my talent. I'm going to have all these microaggressions thrown at me. What is the point?
That's right.
Right?
It's terrible.
And so then they're like,
Terrible.
well, I'm not pursuing university. I'm not pursuing college. Like, you guys have just
What's the
given me
point?
a nightmare career
Yeah.
path.
Yeah.
Why am
Yeah.
I pursuing it?
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
No,
this is
100%.
where, and that's why I came out, and again, I shot back at Rick Ross when he was a guest performer at one of our organizations. Is actually a tech organization, a black tech organization, and it was their annual conference or whatever, and they had Rick Ross perform. Well, how
Mhm.
are you going to tell people that, hey, you need to take this DEI seriously, you need to take diversity training, you got to learn about microaggressions, and then you have Rick Ross, the personification of a crack dealer,
Yes.
performing at your event
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
TD logo in the back? Like,
Yeah.
do we not know anything about branding?
It is. It is. It is sad and pathetic. And I want to. Took some notes here, and I'm going to turn my hat around. Okay.
Yeah.
A, because you're getting into some serious applied intelligence, and B, I'm a selfless self promoter. Okay, of applied
Yeah.
intelligence. So now you're getting into the applied intelligence. I turn my head around. So a couple of things you've touched on. Um, you know, in terms of investing, a lot of grant money. a lot of banks have given money to organizations. Okay. But that money is not sustainable. Okay. What is sustainable are, people who actually put money in to a pool of into a venture fund, or and allow that venture fund to go out there and invest, let's say if it's Black community focused in Black tech entrepreneurs. Okay, those who've come out with ideas. That's sustainable, because more money is, because there is wealth in the Black community, even though people, let's say, have corporate jobs, some of business.
Oh, there
There's
is
tons
wealth.
of money, but the difference is that
Absolutely.
money doesn't go and invest. So the whole thing about banks giving you money, and government giving you money, and looking to invest in entrepreneurship, is not a sustainable thing, and it doesn't work, because the people who even decide on who gets what have no venture or entrepreneurial experience. So that's gonna be a failure, and it's already a failure. It doesn't work. And the other problem with that is that the whole idea of engineering entrepreneurship is ridiculous, and it doesn't work. You can't go out there and have money and look to go and spoon feed people and look for mediocrity and say, "Oh, wonderful, you created this new Black safe space, nonsense. We're going to give you money." That's not who you give money to. You got to give money to people who have proven and come up with ideas and worked hard and sacrifices, put everything on the line. Those are the people with resilience who are going to make it. Those who you have to look for. This engineering, the social engineering of entrepreneurship, goes against every principle of entrepreneurship based on history. So this whole mediocre game that we're playing, and the lack of not being sustainable, okay, all it does too is just, it leads us down a failed road. And I continue to wonder what your thoughts are on this alternative reality that doesn't exist, that we are pushing, our community to, but because it makes us feel good, as opposed to accepting the reality of how the world really works.
So I'm going to give you a couple of examples, right? So
Yeah,
so first off, you say that the money, so money supposedly comes to us, and we distribute it. It doesn't happen that way.
doesn't
The
happen
the
that way.
money comes
Exactly.
to us,
That's
right? So it's
right.
just like the NBA player that starts a VC fund, but
Yeah,
nobody checks to look at the portfolio of companies they're funding. But we share that this NBA player created a VC fund and never once looked to see who's being funded, right?
exactly.
Because
Yeah,
you'll see that the money doesn't go to us, right?
exactly.
So that's
Exactly.
number one. Number two, these organizations get the funding, they turn around and say, let's do a report. Let's spend 100K on a report. Guess who
Report.
gets the report?
Yep.
McKinsey, Deloitte. Like they
Yep.
don't even say, is there
Not me.
people in our community that can write this report for us?
Yep.
Right? Again,
Yep.
they want to be like their bosses and hire McKinsey,
Yeah. Yep.
right? So that doesn't work.
Mhm.
Um, so this is yeah, this pattern, it's gotta stop, and it does things like you said. You brought up, the black this and the black that. During the pandemic, I got people calling me who got funding, organizations saying, hey, how much would it cost to create a black Zoom? I said, that's stupid. Zoom is a commodity. Like, why would you
A
create,
black
like
Zoom.
that doesn't even make sense.
So ridiculous.
You know what I
Like,
mean? Like right? And so it's the same thing. Now I'm seeing all this black chat GPT. Well, anybody in
ridiculous.
this field knows that,
There's
if
no
you're
such
not
thing.
if you don't have the money it takes to really develop that, you're actually discrediting the AI talent in the community.
Yeah.
Because now they're thinking we don't know AI. We're talking this stuff and we don't know it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so that to me is the bigger threat as well, is that we constantly are discrediting ourselves,
Mhm.
when we do things like this, right? And again, engineering entrepreneurship, as you say, and celebrating products and services that to everyone else are Mickey Mouse. And
No,
that's just how I'm going to say it. And again, we hear it directly from other people,
it's
who
not
are
only
candid
Mickey
with us.
Mouse. Yeah, it's not only Mickey Mouse, but I think you touched on this earlier, and this is the point, right? We go around. They look, not we, because that's not me and you, but the whole idea is that they go around looking for grants, and they want to start, like you said, a black GPT. Okay, so let's just take Canada, for example. I mean, I think the Black population is less than 4 million people. And I think the population of Canada is close to 50 million, 45 million people. I'm not sure, right?
Yeah.
But you
I think it's
can't,
48 now, right?
yeah, you can't create wealth
Oh, 40.
selling to a limited, yes, you can't create wealth to a limited population, right? So when
Right.
you create a product, you got to create a product. In order to create wealth, you got to create a product, for everybody, so you can do business with
Absolutely.
everybody. You don't create this whole thing about a black business. It's a business that happens to be owned by a black person. That's how it is. Getting caught in the trap of creating social justice businesses is ridiculous. And I think I saw the other day, I think you not go into any names, I think this woman, she got funded for over $1 million to create. I just want to say without trying to give it away, but anyways, trying to create something in the AI space for black people. Now, when you and I saw that, we kind of shook our heads and said, "Man, this is embarrassing," because anybody who knows anything about technology and AI knows this doesn't even make any sense, and knows that this person at the head of it has no idea of what's going on. But this is the trap. Okay, when we start focusing in this culture of black businesses or whatnot, you have to become an entrepreneur, have an idea that you believe can change the world, that or can do this, but it doesn't help us if we're not succeeding in business, which is what's happened. How many black tech businesses, how many things have come since George Floyd? With none, because we don't have a sustainable ecosystem of capital coming through to invest in real entrepreneurs that have proven their mettle, that we can invest in. And we
Well,
we
and
we continue to
right.
move in mediocrity, right?
Right. No, and again, and so I know people from all different backgrounds,
Mhm.
including white, who it takes them a long time and well connected. Like one guy I'm thinking about is so well connected on Wall Street, it's unreal. I've been up in the NASDAQ, rang the bell in the NASDAQ because of him, sat in, some very powerful meetings with him and whatnot, and he struggled to get
Yeah,
VC funding, right?
absolutely.
Right. So it takes time, it takes persistence, it takes resilience. But
Mhm.
again, when you have to do that, plus you have a brand that is taking a hit, that
Yes,
these people don't really know this stuff, and that's the
yes.
one thing about tech. You can't lie in tech. You know
Can't
what I
fake it.
mean?
Can't
You
fake it.
can't fake it.
Yeah,
So that's one thing. Like people who are in tech, we hear things and we're just like BS. Like that's embarrassing that they said that, because it's completely wrong. It doesn't make sense. That's not how this works.
mhm.
And so then you're constantly discredited. So yes, you'll get guilt money,
Yeah.
or write off, or end of your
Yeah,
expense money,
yeah,
to do these types of things. But again, like you said, when they then say, oh, let's award this because they're doing a black this or a black that, they're basically saying keep them in that sandbox, keep them
exactly.
over
Keep them in
there.
a sandbox. Yeah,
Right. They're
yeah,
not coming into the general marketplace.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
fine. Leave them where they are.
yeah.
And like you said, and I tell these young people who become disenchantized, I said, listen, unlike me growing up, where my opportunity zone was local, you
Hmm.
guys have a global reach. I mean, there is no limit to who you can sell to, right? All the tools are there.
Yeah,
You just got to come up with the product, and then find the ways to figure out how to distribute it, market it, brand yourself, etc. So again, by pigeonholing us, under these grants and whatnot, it is completely limiting. And again, when I keep saying that we're so behind others when it comes to where we are economically, and especially how quickly the economy is changing, because the economy is actually fundamentally changing right now,
100%.
and we will be left on the sidelines, if things aren't done quickly, and it might even be too late, for the broader community. Just from what I see, one thing I've said for a long time, picking up on people like Dr. Claude Anderson and others, is the code of conduct. We don't have a code of conduct, so
Yep,
it's very hard to compete with others who have a code of conduct when you don't
yep.
have one.
Yeah, have a code of conduct and have an understanding of how the world really works. And this is
Hmm.
really what I want to, as we getting closer to wrapping it up.
Hmm.
Um, one of the things I want people to leave here with, okay, we are focused on science, and our brains have to work towards logic as opposed to emotion. And all I'm trying to say here is, since George Floyd, this phenomenon of the nonprofit trying to lead profit, okay? Is it okay? What I'm saying is not Perry Douglas or Andrew saying it doesn't work. What's saying it doesn't work is actually the history of entrepreneurship and the history of the universe. Okay, so for me, what I look at is, I look at the last 1,000 years, okay, through of entrepreneurship, through innovations, the Enlightenment age, and all those things, right? I look at that, and what it tells us, the common denominator for every civilization, for every society, for every group of people to create wealth has been entrepreneurship. And the way entrepreneurship has run is by people investing real money, and people investing in their community, taking risk and moving forward.
Right.
This is a bottom up, fundamentally a bottom up process. The top down process, whereby you're creating another fake alternative universe to think you're going to be able to socially engineer entrepreneurship. All I want people to understand, there's no evidence. There's no evidence in history. In actual fact, the evidence tells you these things have not worked in history, and they've been tried before, because all the answers, and I tell people, all the answers you want about the present and the future can be found in history. So if
Right.
something, I want you to think logically, people to think logically, think scientifically. If there is no evidence of some things don't not working, and in fact it says it doesn't actually, the evidence actually proves it doesn't work that way, here's how it works. Why do we follow, why do we have people who push on emotions, okay, as opposed to acting on factual information? And why are we doing something that doesn't work, and we're going against all evidence? This is just science. It's physics. Physics will dominate and tell you what is possible and what is not possible. And this lack of scientific mindset drives me crazy. So I don't know, what is your thoughts on this? People continuously doing the wrong thing, expecting the right thing to
Yeah.
happen to
So
them.
no, so I completely agree with you. The only thing that I will add, and it's something,
Yeah,
a running theme
yeah,
on my LinkedIn posts,
yeah,
is the notion of mindset, right? Because I
yeah,
realized that
yeah.
mindset really is the difference maker. So you can
Okay.
have the science and whatnot, but then you have to actually have the
The
mindset to go
mindset.
do it
Yes.
and
Yeah.
compete. And so again, business is a competitive world. It's dog eat dog. That's that's
Yeah.
that's that's what it is, right?
Yes. Yes.
And it's funny for those of you who want to get a sense of it, watch The Founder, the Ray Kroc story,
Oh
right? And
yeah.
of
Oh my
course,
God. That's a great
right. So
movie.
of course, some of it's going to be over dramatized and whatnot, but
Oh
there's a
my
line in
God.
there that kills me every time. He says to the original founders of McDonald's after he took the business from them,
Yeah.
he said, what makes me and you different is that if you saw the competitor drowning in a pool, you would go over and try to save them. Me, I would take the running hose, jam it in their mouth, and finish the job.
Yep. 100%.
Right?
Yep.
and and
Mindset.
and it's mindset, right? And
Yeah.
you're competing, you love to compete. I used to look down on no, I'm going to say it. I used to look down on college athletics and whatnot because I thought, you should be there getting your education, your
Yeah.
academics and whatnot. But when I worked in the United States, I realized they value the athlete because the athlete is competitive. So if you put
Yes.
an athlete, a former D1 athlete,
Yep.
in a sales role, and then you
Yep.
have competitions on sales targets,
Yes.
you're going to be laughing
Yep.
because
Yep.
they're all going to exceed them,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
but again, it's competition, right?
Yeah.
And again, that's something that in Canada we kind of shy away from competing aggressively. And oh no, no, that's not the Canadian way. Well, that's how it works, right?
Yeah.
And so again, we again, coming back to what you said, it has to be based on what reality says works,
Yes.
and then having the mindset to go do it. And again, have the
Yeah.
mindset to bounce back from failures because
Yeah.
I've failed so many times in terms of making wrong decisions and whatnot. And again,
Yeah.
I put out a post the other day saying, like, if I listened to my vibes, if I listened to my energy, I wouldn't have made those mistakes. So that was one thing that I learned as an entrepreneur: is
Yeah.
listen to your gut. No matter
Yeah.
what, listen to it. It's right.
Yeah.
It
No,
has
no,
the track record.
100%. And what you're talking about in terms of mindset is 100% 100% correct. Because if you think that you're a victim, if you think you can't succeed, if you think, and I tell my kids, never to think like that. If you think being black is a disadvantage, then you're dead. You might as well pack up and go home. You have no chance of winning. And as you know, I'll tell you a quick story. So now, that we have, we're developing, our software, and we're looking to challenge, the likes of, ChatGPT, and when I say that in terms of, from an enterprise software solution, we're looking to become $1 billion company. And one of the things in the capital raising situation, I found my way all the way to Silicon Valley. And won't mention some of the firms that we sent our decks to, but when you look at those firms, they're all white.
Mm,
Okay,
mhm,
they're all white males. Okay, you'll have a
mhm.
few women, you'll have some Asians, East Indian or East Asian or whatnot, but at the end of the day, they're white. There's nobody there to look like me. So if I said to myself, man, there's nobody there that looked like me, um, I don't know if I'm going to succeed. If I had that mindset, like, again, I might as well forget about it. My mindset is, okay, they don't look like me. So what? I'll be the first,
That's
right?
it.
like I'll be the first. I went to a top university, just like most of them. I've succeeded in other areas. I've succeeded. Hey, I look at my life. I've succeeded in sports. I've succeeded academically. I've succeeded, on Bay Street at probably the top firm in the world. So what the hell? Why would I be afraid? Why would I be
Right.
afraid? And one of the things that's very harmful in our Black community. We are afraid of failure, and not only we're afraid of failure, we actually shame Black entrepreneurs who might have failed. In other communities, people are like, oh, fail, let's start again, right? So we
That's
have
it.
this culture of fear, which becomes so harmful to us. And you're so right. It's all about mindset. If
It's
you have
mindset.
a, if you don't have the mindset, we're gonna fail. And I think we don't have the mindset. We have the mindset of social engineering and community programs and grants, as opposed to they're out there, get out in the real world and fight for what you
But
want.
and that's what LinkedIn had become, and that's why I became so vocal, because
Yes.
every time I logged in, it was always woe is us, woe is us, woe is us. And I said, I wouldn't hire these people as a black firm
Well,
because they're
what?
poison pills.
They're poison pills.
Um,
Yeah.
right? So, and to your point about making that the mindset, when you go in to make a pitch for a business or a sales pitch, you're not black, you're green, as long as
Yes.
green being
Money.
cash,
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
If what you're producing solves the problem and produces a ROI, and they believe that you can do it, right?
Yeah.
And so we come with recommendations. So they believe we can do it because we referred to by people who they trust. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
that is why it's so important to diversify, get out there, and make a name for yourself, and do the hard work. Um, so completely agree with what you said. And again, it really is that mindset. And again, that fragility that came in with the again, all this stuff, the microaggressions, all this stuff I was hearing. And it's just like my friend said it to me too, and he realized it as he was telling me the story. He says, I'm a top salesperson for a big multinational company. At that company, if I close 3 out of 10 sales, I'm rocking it. I'm like Hall of Famer. And I
Yep.
said, 3 out of 10, that's only 30%. He says, yeah, but he says the deal sizes are so big, that's why that's the case, right?
Yeah.
And then he said to me, he said, based on what we've been talking about, I get what you're saying, because 3 out of 10 is a failure rate. And if I thought that it was because of my race, he's black, then I wouldn't have been a salesperson. I would have
Yeah.
dropped out a long time ago, thinking
Yep.
that woe is me, it's because I'm black. That no, sales is just hard. And you gotta be able to. It's the law of how big is your pipeline, right?
Yeah.
And right. And so So again, it's a different mindset, but once you let that mindset of I'm a victim creep in, especially in entrepreneurship, you're done. You
You're,
cannot do this with that mindset. You can't.
you're 100% done. So I want to wrap it up by I'm going to say a few words, and then I want you to
Hmm.
think about what you feel you want to leave the
Hmm.
listeners with. One of the things I want to just say, we are not here to be anti nonprofit organizations. Okay.
No.
I have clients who are nonprofit organizations, and the nonprofit organizations that do good work from a charity perspective, and helping people, that's great, and you absolutely need that in society. And when we get our $1 billion valuation, I'll be writing checks to those particular organizations. They're vitally. What we have a problem with is the nonprofits led by people who are creating this fake system that doesn't work, okay, which is becoming harmful to our society, okay, our community. That's the nonprofits we're talking about. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that, because a lot of people who've been in this nonprofit game for a long time and be putting in, some really, really good work, and they deserve all the credit in the world, and they're very essential in our society. But again, it's this alternative universe that has brought, since George Floyd, phenomenon that has been created, which absolutely doesn't work and becomes harmful to the entrepreneurs and Black community in general. So I just think it's important for
Yeah.
us to relay that. And with that, what are your closing thoughts that you want to leave the listeners with today?
Well, well, to echo what you just said, right? We having this discussion because we love the community. We don't dislike
Yes,
or hate the community. We're not haters. We
yes,
love the community,
yes,
and we have concerns over where it's heading based on the
correct.
economic, wins and changes that we see coming, and the
Yeah,
technology changes that we see coming. So,
yeah,
so that's why we're having this conversation, and so again, it's to really for us to reflect on what it is that we have to do to change the outcomes, right? And for me, I believe it's working together, having serious conversations. You don't generate revenue off of advocacy. I don't generate revenue off of
yeah,
advocacy.
exactly,
We do it because it's what we're supposed to do as community members. And
exactly.
like I said, I saw this trend with young people basically giving up because of the messages that they were hearing, and that's why I jumped into this and said we got to push back on this.
Yeah,
And then, like I said, the branding being hurt for Black entrepreneurs as a collective, I couldn't sit back and have the brand just tarnished like that. So again,
yeah,
had to push back.
yeah,
So ultimately, what in terms of what to leave the listeners with. Well, thank you for watching this to the end and listening to what we had to say, and I look forward to any feedback that you all have. And I think we should have an in-person, like a real meeting of the minds at some point,
yep,
to hash this out and look at a code
yeah,
of conduct and these types of
yeah,
things.
yeah,
And yeah, so I mean that's where I'll leave it. I'll just say that that as a father of a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old, I have no clue what their future looks like. I can just
yeah.
give them the tools and try to build a legacy
Mhm,
that will take them through. And
mhm.
and that's all I want on a broader sense for the community, is that we have a strategic plan for going forward.
Yeah, no, and listen, and I echo that as a father of a 25-year-old, or is it 26? So I'm old, and 23-year-old,
Right.
and one still left in university.
Yep.
Um, you know, to me, all I tell them is never be a victim,
Yep.
okay, and work hard,
Yep.
okay, and you will earn your privilege, right? you
That's
know
it.
that's it. It's not a human right, right? Wealth and privilege is not a human right. I mean, it doesn't matter what position you start in life, okay? you got to fight for everything you want, and don't let anything, obstruct you. But listen, I really, appreciate you being here. But before we
Mhm.
officially, sign off, I want to thank everybody for listening to Applied Intelligence. Applied Intelligence tries to bring you extraordinarily, good people doing extraordinarily good things, who can set examples for our community, or community in general. And also, I want people to subscribe. Okay, if you guys subscribe to my channel, Applied Intelligence, Perry Douglas at Applied Intelligence on YouTube. The more you subscribe, the more I can get out there and bring you conversations like this. And this is an ongoing conversation. And the whole thing about subscribing, and we want you to subscribe and come in and apply your intelligence and listen to what we are saying, and give feedback, because we may not be right on everything, and we're probably not, but at
Right.
least we want to have an honest conversation, right? And be honest, and not be afraid to deal in the objective truth. And that's truly what Applied Intelligence. So please, people, subscribe. So, Mr. Bromfield, right?
Yes.
We're going to sign off. You have, a wonderful Friday. I'm
Yep.
looking forward to my oxtail this afternoon, and or later on this evening, and
Right.
moving into the weekend. So, anyways, all the best.
Yes. Thank
I know
you.
you're going to get
Same to
back to
you.
work. I got to get back to work too, but
Right.
I'm going to be posting this very shortly, and we're good to go.
All right. Excellent. Thank you.
All right, man. Talk to you later. All the best.
All right. Same to you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Cool. Bye bye.